Good afternoon. You're listening to WCEG Network, your WCEG Talk Radio. You can watch us on Smart TV, YouTube, WCEG. We are Veterans Today. We are your worldwide community empowerment group. We are speaking life in the community. And I am Herman Anderson, co-host of Veterans Today. My other co-host, Anthony Aiken.
Hey, I'm back, folks. How you doing? It's been a minute, but I'm back.
And today we have a guest, Morocco Coleman. We've been doing this show for quite a while now.
Almost 5 years, man.
For off the air for a few months, but we are back now and we are reloaded and we're ready to go. We gonna have our guest introduce himself and give us just a brief update on his life and career. Then we'll move into some of the hot activities of the day, current events that relates to veterans.
Yep.
All right. Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here. My name is Morocco Coleman. I'm a native Atlantan. I retired from the Georgia Department of Labor actually 20 years ago. And I was the assistant director for the Office of Veterans Programs. And each Labor Department office around the state of Georgia, 131 offices, I was in charge and overseeing those offices where the veterans representatives are to provide jobs and benefits and services to veterans in each one of these offices. As a result of my work, I became a member of the boards, state boards of the American Legion, DAV, VFW, Vietnam Vets for America. Also, I was on all of those boards. I was the employment chairman, and due to the nature of my work, I was invited to Washington, D.C. in 1992 to testify before the House Subcommittee on Oversights and Investigations dealing with veterans issues and the lack of veterans services and monies in the state of Georgia. Once I finished testifying, the room gave me a standing ovation, and Congressman Charlie Rangel appointed me as the national chairman for Black Veterans Employment and Training, which just doesn't mean just Black veterans, but all veterans. And so even though I'm retired, it's a labor of love, and I still today help a lot of veterans. I get phone calls from all over the country with veterans needing help with claims or other issues. And I'm able to, in the capacity in Washington, I've gotten to know many of the congressmen and senators, and I work with them. So usually I can make a phone call and make some things happen. And this is probably my second or third opportunity to be on this show. And again, I thank you for that opportunity.
Well, I tell you what, it's good to always have you back, because not only you're a veteran, but you're an advocate for veterans, and the things that you tend to bring out, hopefully it will be sort of like a mustard seed to get a veteran moving, because sometimes it takes a little push to get it going. So along with Herman, we welcome you back to WCEG Network.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, a lot of times, because I've called you in the past and I have people to call you,
Yeah.
and a lot of times you give us that last little tip that help us close the deal.
Good.
Close the deal.
Also, I forgot to mention that Colonel Aiken and I are both on the Mayor's Veterans Commission.
Yeah.
And so we're able to affect some things here in the city of Atlanta dealing with veterans.
You know, this Veterans Today radio has gotten a world appeal. And by that I mean yesterday I was on Radio 1 and had the opportunity to speak about veteran issues, but at the same time I had to give a plug to the WCEG Network.
Yeah.
You know, where it all starts because of our passion. I mean, I've enjoyed a tremendous number of years with Herman and Gustavo Juliao, who is now on a little sabbatical himself. But we called ourselves, you know, the Three Musketeers, man. We were just committed to, like you, providing on a weekly basis information of importance to veterans to help them through some challenging times.
Great.
Also, let our listeners know you can like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and call and join the conversation by calling 678-619-1402.
Absolutely,
And
Herman.
what we'll do now, there's a lot that has taken place last week was current events. So
Oh yeah, quite a bit of
we'll
things.
express some views on some of those.
We're not getting on the impeachment now. That's over. We can't add any more to that one. But there's so many different things happening with veterans. I just happened to read something the other day that you meant a key on is the Mission Act. You remember how it started out 2 or 3 years ago was to make sure that we did things of importance for veterans and get them seen at the VA. Well, the Mission Act was supposed to take care of that. But we see here in Georgia, there are over 315,000 veterans trying to be seen at the VA, and they can't because they don't have the physicians and they don't have the resources to take care of them. So the Mission Act is supposed to be able to get them out in a timely manner to have their matter taken care of. And we're finding now that veterans are still waiting an average of 52 to 57 days before they can get a consult. Not to be treated, but a consult. And I don't know what's going to be the answer to take care of ensuring veterans get the health care that they need in the largest healthcare system in the United States. It's unbelievable.
Well, I believe in first looking at, okay, you got the problem. Now, what's the solution? And then when you look at the solution, well, that makes sense. So now with the solution, how come it's not happening? And this is one of the age-old problems. I started working with veterans programs with the Labor Department in 1985. And even that far back, there was always problems with VA, the backlog. They were bringing in new people. They got monies to bring in new representatives to work with veterans. They started putting more out into the community-based organizations. And it would be all right for a short period of time, and then the malaise would sink in, and we're right back where we started from. And here it is, all these years later, it's the same situation. And you look at the amount of veterans in the state of Georgia just alone. These men stepped forward and committed to the military service and were actually promised benefits and health care, once they retired or separated from service. Now we hear, well, there's not enough money, there's not enough this, not enough that. Well, evidently it's about the finances. And so my personal feeling is, once you're out of the military and now you got a disability, they can't ever call you back, so they don't need you anymore. They write you off. And so, we don't need to spend that money, so we'll cut back on staff and this kind of thing. And so we have to call our congressman, and we have to light a fire and stand up en masse and do what we have to do. When you have a problem with your VA, you call your congressman.
That's true.
And when you call that congressman and make that complaint, each congressman's office has a representative in his office, his or her office, to look after veterans' issues. And once you do that, then that calls for a congressional investigating committee.
Yep, I agree.
So once that congressional pops up, that location where you're being looked over is now put on notice, and everybody goes into pucker mode.
They don't want to be on the grid. They don't want to be on the grid at that point. No.
But now I only use that when working with veterans, and I get a very hard case, and I'm not able to get the ball over the 5-yard line. Then I go to the congressman. That's usually my last result. I mean, I've got a bunch of tools I use in between time.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you and I have had conversations about that because Herman and I, we've been waiting almost 2.5 years on aid and attendance. And I remember having a conversation with you, and you said, well, how come you're not calling your congressman? You know what I mean? Get something going.
Well, that's true. And I actually talked to some of on the state level, for example, Mike Glenn is one of the representatives that I talk to a lot. He's a veteran. And some of the people that represent us in the state or the federal government are veterans, and a lot of them are veteran friendly. So I think it's a lot of time we just need that little push to go to our congressman.
Nothing wrong with that either, man. I mean,
no.
And that's what they're there for. They have liaisons. I agree with you. People have worked with veterans on various issues, but you got to get going. You got to get it started.
Now, let me say that one time I was in the VA back in '79. I was in the VA for 10 months, and I was dying. And in the 9th month, they came up with a new surgical procedure. They asked me, did I want to try it? I said, anything to get this pain off of me and whatever might help me. During that 10 months, I got first-class excellent treatment from the doctors, the nurses, and the staff at the VA. And on different other occasions when I've gone to the VA for outpatient something here or there, always top-line service. But now, Atlanta's rating, I think the rating is on a 1 to 5.
Yes, it's number one.
And Atlanta, you heard about the guy out there some months ago. It was covered in ants in the nursing home and whatnot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then you have rooms full of waste and stuff that they find that's been piling up in there, And so right now you have the VISN director that's been put on relief while they're doing investigations. I don't agree with that, but then who am I? But so with the rating lowered, and they've also cut back on the amount of surgeries. In fact, I don't think they're doing surgeries at the
They're doing some, but not as many.
And it's limited.
Yes, limited surgeries.
Because and one of the big things that they would say is that, nurses and doctors in private sector make more money, and we're not competitive enough. And so that's one of the reasons for the backlogs, et cetera. Well, get them the money.
Yes.
The VA system all over this country is designed for veterans. Now, they can put all that money into new rockets and new ammunition and stuff they'll never even use, new play toys and stuff, and they'll tell you how great our defense system is. But where's the defense for the veterans in need of services and help?
100%.
Well, that's back to what you said, the budget, and your representative in Washington, when they're working on a budget, we need to keep our eyes on whether they're cutting back or adding to the budget for the VA to take care of veterans.
And the majority members up there are not veterans.
That's true.
So they have no real affinity for veterans.
There's no association. Unfortunately, most of Congress is like that. They serve, but they have not served. So they don't have the feeling of a rucksack or eating an MRE or being out in the field or, living in some type of environment that is not healthy to you in the long run. But there's so many things that you mentioned that I hope would spark some of our listeners that, the VA overall, and my experience, like yours, has been extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
I've had, matter of fact, on the 31st of October of last year, my 7th eye surgery in the VA. And I still have stitches in, and they won't come out until the 18th of February, this month. But every one of my experiences have been very, very positive. However, in the meantime, as I've stated to our listeners before on a number of occasions, if you feel that there's something wrong, you need to make sure that those individuals are held accountable. And if you not say anything at all, that same action will proliferate. So if you feel as though something is awry, that you as a patient is not being treated fairly, or a staff of someone at the VA is not, performing and doing their jobs right to you, then you have a right to stand up and say something about it. Otherwise, it's going to still be the same.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same.
Yeah, I have a veteran group. My group is Veteran Helping Veterans, and I had a presenter the first of the year that came to my meeting, and this was someone that works at the VA, and he told us that there is actually a process. It's an advocate that you can go to.
Correct.
To have someone look to request a change in doctors or to have your records looked at. So there's the process there. We just we need to be more aggressive in using that process.
You know, I've made suggestions to the hospital staff. When you go into any major VA, you see televisions with news shows, or you go by the pharmacy and there's a couple of screens with your names rolling down. You go into the cafeteria, same video with your name rolling down. But there's no videos of good news of importance to veterans can take a look at. I mentioned it at the Birmingham VA. I mentioned it at the Atlanta VA. If you have all of these opportunities for screens, there are opportunities for you to share information. And I think that would eliminate and alleviate some of the issues that individuals have. If you have a concern, this is where you need to go. Something of positive reinforcement to help them uplift the issue that they're dealing with on a daily basis.
If you go to the VA and you're applying for something, or you need to talk to someone, like you're saying, like a veterans advocate, you have to also be astute in talking to these people to see if what they're telling you is true. Do your research after you meet with them or whatever,
right?
And make sure they're on the up and up. Because I know at one time, some years ago, I went to the advocate on behalf of a couple of veterans, and I came away with the feeling that this guy was like one of those union shop stewards. He was in the pocket of the company. And he gives you a soft shoe, and I'm going to do this and do that, and nothing happens. Another thing is a lot of veterans are going in to acquire attorneys to handle their VA claims. And a lot of cases, you got a military JAG officer retired or separated from service, and they say, well, I know military law, so now I'll go into veterans law with the veterans doing the same thing the veterans reps. Then you got to give them a third of any recovery you get. When you get your lump sum, a third of it is going directly to that lawyer. Now, I constantly do not recommend veterans to do that, but if you just have to, and I understand that this backlog and this problem here at the VA and this wait time, but you got to push the envelope. You have already paid by your military service for those representatives to be there. They do not work for the VA.
Right.
For instance, the DAV, when I was involved, that organization, that representative is paid from the headquarters in Cincinnati.
Correct.
They are paid for, the only one that's different is the State Veteran Services. That's the state of Georgia.
Correct.
Okay. The American Legion, DAV, Vietnam Vets, Paralyzed, all of them are paid by that organization. So they're independent of the VA. The VA must provide them office space so we know where to find them. But they fight for you against the VA. And so if you just have to reach a point where you feel that you have to get an attorney, then fully understand that you're going to give a large sum of money to that attorney if they win your case. But these veterans representatives, I used to go and train with them down at Jekyll Island for a week and whatnot. And they would bring in doctors from the VA around the country. They would bring the administrators from Washington. It was very comprehensive, the training every year.
Is that the Georgia Department of Veteran Services?
Yeah, and that was back when, and Mike Roby is now the commissioner. Now, Mike and I started out back around the same time. So I've known him for a good while. He's a good man. But his predecessor was Commissioner Pete Wheeler.
Right.
Correct.
Commissioner Wheeler was the commissioner for over 70 years.
Yeah.
He was a brigadier general in World War II. And that building up on the hill, when we say, well, you got to go up on the hill, that's the Pete Wheeler building.
Matter of fact, that's Pete Wheeler Highway going towards the VA.
Yeah, and he knows before he passed, he knew every president from back in the 50s all the way up until the time that he died. And he had the power to make things happen at the VA.
Correct.
One thing that I've been told regarding the Georgia Department of Veteran Services, and the other state have Department of Veteran Services too, that those guys are very well trained, and that's an opportunity to use that service rather than go paying for legal service.
Right.
Yeah, but just like he said, if you really have to, you can use it. But I agree with you, Herman. Those guys are trained and they're sharp, but you got to stay on them too.
Yeah.
You just can't give them the information and back up. It's a communication. Now, yes, you represent 9 numbers. Morocco has 9, you got 9, I got 9. Social Security numbers I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay? And you represent your last letter and your 4 numbers.
So I got number such and so in alphabet. You got those alphabets.
Yeah.
So those are people you see.
So now you understand what I'm stating, that even though you're giving all of this information to that male or female advocate, you still have to make it known that you're going to stay on top of it yourself. And each time, I think you and I had this discussion, even Herman, each time you're seen, get a copy of your records and take it over to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And let that person hand stamp it and put it in the system faster than it's going to take going through the system for someone to take a look at for your possible ratings. So that processes, I hope that you're learning from the information they're providing to you, because we've been through it to get to it.
Well, see that, and you also brought up another issue regarding the processes. Is in today's environment, e-benefits is a big part of it, and we need to have the technology skills of someone in our family to make sure we can go into e-benefits and update, look at status, do what we need to do.
Absolutely, because right now we're in the world of technology, so I know some of the folk from Morocco's era that still like pen and paper.
Or the 12
the blinking
on the recorder.
But right now, this is a world of fast information. I mean, computers, handheld computers, you name it. Herman mentioned e-benefits, but then there's My Healthy Vet, and there's, suicide line. Everything's out there now. So even if you're a little nervous, get someone to help you, a family member, a niece, a nephew, an uncle, or aunt, someone that could help you expedite the process and get away from the paper and pencil.
Yeah. Now, many veterans will tell me, well, I'm waiting to file my claim. I said, well, you've got these disabilities that would be pretty much automatic based on my experience.
Sure.
You need to go and file. Well, I'm waiting on my records. I'm going to send off of my records, or I've sent off of my records and I'm waiting for them. Now, this is a Moroccoism, which is something, Moroccoism is something that's true. I just can't necessarily prove it, but I know it's right. Now, when we were in the military and we moved from one duty station or one country to another, we were military, we were in the DOD, so we carried our records with us.
Correct.
Including medical records.
Correct. And carry.
Yeah. And then until you got to your unit, and then you return them in. Well, now we're civilians. We're no longer in the DOD. So if you send out there, this is the part I can't prove. If you send out to 1600 Page Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, to the Archives Division to get your records, I don't think that they maybe give you all of the records, and the doctor's little statements and the things about this possible disability. I mean, you got enough to work with, but you're not DOD anymore, so you're a civilian. And so they give you some tertiary records, just enough to, do what you need to do. So in the meantime, when you get with that representative, you don't have to wait to get your records or send for your records. When you go to that representative, and if they take your case, they're going to have you to sign some papers giving them power of attorney to represent you.
Correct.
That is correct.
Once they have power of attorney, if anything goes wrong with your case and the time limit runs out or whatever, if you're doing it yourself, time limit runs out, you lose. In the case of the representative, once you give them power of attorney, if anything happens, it's not on you. It's on that rep, and that's a government agent, so you're not harmed by it. But at the same time, when that representative gets that documentation from you, they now will send out to St. Louis and get your record.
Correct.
Yours might take a month or 2 months.
Quite a bit.
That representative sits there and does this every day.
Yeah.
And he may have the hookup where he can just make a phone call out there to a buddy that he's met over the years as they work this kind of thing, and make a phone call, and they get your record.
Correct.
You tell them what's wrong and about the time of year and the location of where it happened, and that's when the representative gets your records, and they look in there to see that. And once they verify it, then they work with you and start on the way to filing those claims.
Well, I tell you, everything you're stating is perfect. It's right on time. It's good, accurate information. Our listeners need to know. Again, it's just a thrill to be able to provide that information, because I'm sure, like you and Herman, I mean, a lot of veterans that say they don't know a lot of things.
That's another thing that's important. Excuse me for cutting you off.
You know what I mean? They don't know a lot of things.
When we go to the VA, we go in there, and 1 and 1 is 2. All of us are intelligent, and we go in. I got hurt, or I got wounded, I got injured. I'm entitled to this disability, and I know I have to go in and speak my case because I know it better than anybody.
Correct.
And we go in with the mindset of 1 and 1 is 2, and 2 and 2 is 4. It doesn't work that way.
No.
The VA is a whole nother language, a whole nother animal. Yeah. Okay? There's a thing called the combined rating table.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't get that. I happen to have a copy, but that's the nature of my work. But for instance, a guy came to me recently, and I've gotten this a number of times. The guy is 80% disabled. And he says, Coleman, if I can just get 20% more, I'll have 100.
No.
On the sliding scale, when you get to 50% or higher, now the VA rating system numbers start to kick in, and 2 and 2 ain't 4 no more.
I know.
And so now that guy that has 80%, he needs a whole nother disability.
Correct.
That totals up to 80%.
Correct.
Which now falls out at 160. You look on the scale, and 160 equals out to 96. And anytime those numbers fall out, if it's 35, 45, if it's got a 5 in there, you can round it up. If you don't have a 5 in there, you have to round it down. So if he's got 80% and he gets 40 more, that's going to give him 93. So they got to round it right back down,
to 90.
To 90. So now you used up all your good stuff. You don't have anything else to go after.
Yeah,
well, see, that's real important, because, like say, most of us go in there not educated, not knowing the system.
Correct, they don't know.
And what, so like when you had the information session, that's very good, because in my group we do it. We try to prep the people before
Correct.
they go in there.
Yeah.
And like I say, by getting the records and by being prepared to have a discussion with the service officer when you go there, it's about preparation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Morocco hit the nail on the head. I don't know how many folks we run into saying, if I can only get 10 more percent, I only need 15%. And in my mind, I'm saying, man, you got to be really jacked up to get that additional amount of money, because you got to come with something that's totally new that they have not, checked on before to go even higher.
Well, see, the 38 CFR is where you can get all this information. And most veterans have no idea
they don't know what that means.
Right.
CFR is.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to share something with the veterans out there, and hear me clearly and hear me well. Listen, if you have 60% disability for just one thing, it is possible, I'm not saying it is, but it's possible that at 60%, that is considered as a profound disability.
Correct.
So you kind of hurting there. At 60% for just one thing, you can go to the VA, talk to the representative, and tell them, I want to apply for unemployability.
Absolutely correct.
Now, I'll be 74 years old on April 10th, and right now I'm 100%, but if I went and I needed some extra income for my family and my grandkids, then I'd go to Walmart for a greeter. I can't even get a job at Walmart as a greeter because they're going to see that I'm a disabled veteran.
Correct.
If one of my disabilities, if it's my knee, I'm a risk to that company because I might bump my knee on a counter or something, and now they're stuck with a workers' comp claim for the rest of my life. I'm a liability. And so nobody is going to hire you. And it's not your fault, it's the military's fault. And so 60% disability, depending on the type of disability it is, if it prevents you from gainfully being employed, you apply for unemployability because you are unemployable. They will take that 60%, and if you're successful, and they'll convert it to 100%. And they will give you an ID card that is almost like a retiree's card. There are many privileges that come with it. Now, on paper, you will still see 60%, but the pay and the information will direct anybody that looks at it that you are at the 100% level. Now, if you have a combination of disabilities, you must be, with 60%, one thing, good to go. If you got 2 or more disabilities and you are at least 70% disabled, 70% or higher, you must have 70% or higher, and one of your disabilities must be a minimum of 40% by itself. For instance, if you've got PTSD at 50%, that gives you the 40 that you need. And so now when you have a combination of things at the 70% or higher level, that will allow you also, like the 60%, to apply for unemployability.
You know, you sound like you're describing me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly correct. I mean, the aspect. You know?
I was 80%. Over the year, I got out in 1970 with 10% disability. And over the years, I learned how to handle disabilities and things that were service connected. Once I got to 80%, I'm not going to get to that 100%. I've used everything I got.
Yeah.
But then the unemployability became aware. I became aware, and that allowed me to take that 80% and convert it to the 100% level.
No, I tell you what, it was strong. Just 1 minute to finish this point, Herman, that the scenario you just described was the exact procedure and thought pattern that we utilized when I was working with my veteran service officer. He realized that I had 70% just in one eye, alone. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the next thing I knew, it was like paperwork, unemployable.
Yeah.
And within the time frame for them to complete my packet, my final packet came in at 90% rated, however, paid at 100%. And all these other things came about because I'm now also unemployable.
Right. Right.
So before I walked out of that room, a whole new world opened up to me. But it was a process. Going back to your word, Herman.
And nobody tells us about that.
Right, it's a process.
You're exactly right.
Nobody
tells us about it. This, and we don't understand it because my first, I have 3 stents in my heart. And so I got 60% right off the bat.
Yeah, that's automatic.
But what the person I was working with didn't tell me until I went and investigated it on myself that I could file for unemployability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you still can.
Well, I did.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. So it's something that we've earned. Yeah. This is nothing given to us, folks out there in Radio Land. You have earned everything that you were promised to serve.
And a lot of people in the system or that work with these kind of things, they are not telling the veterans the things that we're talking about on the show today.
No.
Okay?
Exactly. The group I have is 7 years old. And that's why we started the group. Matter of fact, one of the persons that found us officer was here, Lewis Jackson.
Yes.
And because me and Lewis went to Savannah State together.
Okay, gotcha.
And so we both also went to Vietnam. And we were the same age, and we were going through the same stuff at the same time, and we were having the same experience. So that's what led us to doing this.
Good, and it's outstanding what you all have accomplished. I'd like to share some information here that I recently received. On December the 31st, 2019, the last day of 2019, in December, the VA published a new regulation, and this regulation relates to blue water veterans.
Correct.
A blue water veteran is a veteran that was on a ship way out there at sea, and they never came in on the boots on the ground. They never came into shore. I was in the Central Highlands, so we look out on the ocean, you don't see anything out there. And then they call for artillery from that ship. And it comes in
like crazy.
And all of a sudden, you hear a boom out there on the water. And at night, you can see the lights, the stars twinkling off of that artillery round is about the size of a Volkswagen going overhead. And then 5 miles past you, it explodes. And you look out there and you still don't see that ship. They never come in. It's a self-sustaining ship with everything on it.
Yeah.
And so now, after 6 months or whatever, another ship comes out there, relieves that one, and that ship leaves. And these guys are called blue water veterans because they never came into country. They never had boots on the ground. But yet and still, they're coming down with the same incidence rate as veterans boots on the ground with Agent Orange.
Correct.
The VA has been denying them for years. And so now the Institute of Medicine has determined that the wind blew the Agent Orange out to sea, and that mist surrounded those ships. And now on a basis, these veterans can now file for all of the disabilities and illnesses and diseases associated with Agent Orange. You go to your VA and apply for it. Now, one of the things that they're going to look at is that it's called a presumption of herbicide exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange, correct.
And veterans who served no more than 12 nautical miles offshore on the Republic of Vietnam between January 6, 1962 and May 1975.
Ooh. Long time, 13 years.
And this is the one that blew me away when I got this. Also, veterans that served in Korea on the DMZ.
Correct.
Now that 38 parallel, you got equations, and then the grids and the stuff on the earth. The 38 parallel that runs through Vietnam runs straight through the middle of South Korea and North Korea. And it's divided just like Vietnam. And so veterans that served on the DMZ or South Korea between January 1st, 1967 and August 31st, 1971 can now apply for disability compensation and other benefits if they have since developed one of the 14 conditions that I'm going to give you in a few minutes that are presumed as a result of Agent Orange exposure.
Now,
so now what they are admitting to, that back in the 50s, even, they won't go that far, but I know it for a fact, they sprayed Agent Orange in Korea.
Sure.
But during the Vietnam War, evidently it was sprayed. But I think another thing here, this is a Moroccoism again, I think that they may have been storing the herbicides, and that was one of the storage places there.
Well, I was going to bring that out because I'm very familiar with what you're reading. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of other countries that are also now being considered. Thailand, Laos, Canada, all of these areas where they did the storage and not just spraying. So I think there are about 7 countries that are now affected with this Blue Water Navy Vietnam situation, that those veterans can go and check to be determined.
Right.
But I had a veteran tell me that he was in charge of one of those storage areas, and it was an officer. So he said he didn't have no idea what was in there. Mm-hmm. He was in charge of it, and the enlisted person took care of it, but he never knew what he was in charge.
And he got promoted?
Yeah. Now, so far they haven't they haven't said anything about storage, about veterans having exposure to herbicides that were in Germany.
No.
And that was where they were storing
No,
it.
they didn't say anything but Germany.
It'll take some more years for them to do that, but I guess what they do, and Moroccoism again, I think sometimes they stall this thing and wait till as many of us die or get up in age.
Well, that's the game plan.
Before they do anything.
That's the game plan.
Now, I'm going to tell you what, if you have any of these illnesses, diseases, then they are associated with Agent Orange. It's called a presumption. A presumption means that it is presumed that if you served in Vietnam, you drank the water, you breathed the air, you ate the food, you were exposed to Agent Orange. And so if you have any one of these illnesses or diseases, it came from Vietnam. Okay, like type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
They used to say, well, your mama had it, couldn't get
You just got sugar, boy.
Yeah. But now they had to change all of that.
Yeah, you got sugar.
If you served in Vietnam, that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is allodosis. It's a rare disease caused when the abnormal protein enters the tissues of the organs. So now you all have to check that, look at it. Chronic B-cell leukemia. Mm-hmm. Chloroacne, where you got these scars in your face or somewhere on your body where your skin is highly irritated. And you got pock marks and all these kind of things. Look up chloroacne. It's a skin condition that occurs soon after exposure to chemicals and looks like common forms of acne seen in teenagers. Okay? Now, diabetes mellitus, which is type 2 diabetes.
Type 2.
These are automatic disabilities, presumption. If you got them, VA will pay you for them. Hodgkin's disease, a malignant lymphoma, cancer characterized by progressive enlargement of the lymph nodes and spleen. Ischemic heart disease, ischemic, I-S-C-H-E-M-I-C. You don't have to really remember, but ischemic heart disease means that your exposure has caused, it says, a disease characterized by reduced supply of blood to the heart that leads to chest pain. Now, see, this is one of the ways they do this thing. It's vague. What ischemic heart is, if you have to have a stent, if you have to have a pacemaker, if you have to have a defibrillator, if you have arrhythmia, irregular heartbeat, okay? All of those fall under ischemic heart disease.
It does. I got 3.
If you got heart problems, it's an automatic 60% and go to the VA and put your claim in. Multiple myelomas, a cancer of plasma cells, cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a group of cancers that affect the lymph glands and lymphatic tissues. Under your arm, you got lymph glands. In your groin, you have lymph glands. When you have a cut and it gets infected, under your arm starts to hurt because those lymph glands are pulling that infection off.
Yep.
Well, this is where you got cancer in those. Parkinson's disease, correct, what Ali had.
Yes.
Okay. Peripheral neuropathy, a nervous system condition that causes numbness, tingling, and motor weakness. Okay. Peripheral neuropathy means that your hands and maybe your elbows are tingling and numb and these strange feelings in them, your feet and your ankles, where you walk through that Agent Orange, and it's affected your neurological system. And the periphery is like your perimeter is your periphery.
Yep.
Your perimeter is your hands and your feet. Okay? So if you got that kind of situation, go and file. Porphyria cutaneous tartar, a disorder characterized by liver dysfunction and by thinning and blistering of the skin, the sun, etc. But a disorder characterized by liver dysfunction. And I've had a number of veterans come to me about spleens and kidneys. Well, there it is. Prostate cancer. Cancer of the prostate, one of the most common cancers among men.
Right.
Okay? You might be borderline cancer, or you may have an enlarged prostate, won't get it. Okay? But if you got any kind of numbers that are out of order with your prostate, definitely foul. Respiratory cancers, cancers of the lung, the throat, and the bronchial, your lungs. Soft tissue sarcomas, a group of different types of cancers in body tissues as muscle, fat, blood, and lymph vessels. Now, those are automatic disabilities. And you have exposure to Agent Orange. If you served in Vietnam for just 1 hour,
You are exposed.
then you are exposed. You breathe the air.
Yeah.
You ate the food. You drank the water.
You're exposed.
Okay. File for these claims.
Sure.
Okay. Since I've had this organization, I've had at least 3 people that served in Vietnam, and one of them, his records got burned up in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2, they told them they didn't have any records of them serving in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
The one where the records got burned up in St. Louis, he kept pushing it, and he got 100%. These other 2 guys are still chasing it.
You used to hear all of our lives, man, when we played ball as kids, that the tie goes to the runner. Okay? In this case, the records supposedly they were burned out there at 1600 Page Avenue in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Were the records from World War II Navy from H to Z. Now, and that was standard 20 years ago. Now I'm researching and I'm finding they say, okay, well then some of you Vietnam veterans, a few of you had this, and a few of you Korean over here. All of a sudden they're coming up with burned records.
Yeah.
Well, I look at it like this, and this is where your congressman can come in if need be. They are the fiduciary and have the fiduciary responsibility of taking care of each one of our records. And if they are in charge of our records and they are lost or destroyed, that's on them. I can't prove what I'm telling you is wrong with me. I can't prove that I was in Vietnam. And so therefore, you lost my records, but I can show you my service number. You'll pull up my service number in there. So you know I was in the military. Right. So if you can't prove that this didn't happen to me in Vietnam, then if you can't prove it didn't, then you got to take my word for it that it did happen. Well, and that's probably how your friend got that 100%.
Well, he got 100%. And the one that I got, the other one, well, I got one yesterday, and I'm going to refer this guy to go to his congressman.
Yeah. Also, they have a thing called buddy letters.
Yeah.
Okay. You're trying to prove that you were wounded, but you didn't go to a sick call. You didn't go looking for a Purple Heart. You in the heat of battle out there, you let it slide and kept on moving. Now that wound is giving you problems with your skin. It may have messed up some ligaments or tendons and whatnot. But there's nothing in the records that it happened.
Yes.
But they will accept what they call buddy letters. If you can find 2 individuals that were members of your unit and were present when this happened to you, then you can get them to write a letter specifying the date and the time, etc., and that they were with you and they saw this happen and that happened. And those buddy letters carry a lot of weight, and the VA does accept those.
I got one other issue that this guy was also in Vietnam. He was actually over there the same time I was. But he has letters from his mom that he wrote back and forth to Mississippi, and they are considering accepting those.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's documentation that it existed. Because I'm dealing with a veteran right now who's in his 90s. He was a Vietnam veteran and officer. All of his records were supposedly lost. Mm-hmm. And he was having all kinds of problems. So he even had copies of his awards. Mm-hmm. Silver Star, Purple Heart, Vietnam badge, all of these things. He was still getting concerns from the VA that, well, we're not sure if that's you. He said, well, wait a minute, hold up. wait a minute. on these awards, it shows my name and my social security number. I have my ID card with the social security number. What's the problem here? And it took him months to get 40%. Months. But this gentleman has at least 7 to 8 health issues that are associated with what you just read, and they're battling him like crazy.
Yeah, he's got the door open. And,
yeah.
And you would think that they would look at it, this guy's 90 years old, man. He's on drugs for so long.
But you said something earlier, wait for you to croak.
Right.
The longer we push this thing out, the longer our probability you're not going to be able to pay this gentleman.
Yeah. I have a buddy that was he flew Korea. He's a Tuskegee Airman, but when he finished up, the war ended, so he never got to fly. But he flew in Korea and Vietnam, and he was never on boots on the ground in Vietnam, but he was at Utapao in Thailand. And
another area that's suspected.
Yeah, and he came down where he was a light colonel. He came down with prostate cancer and Parkinson's. And I had to put up a heck of a fight, man, to eventually get his disability, because they were saying that, well, no, Agent Burns wasn't there, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, he flew B-52s. And he was also flying those planes that was spraying.
Yeah.
Okay. So now they've changed the law and what you were talking about in these other countries and whatnot.
Yeah.
So in Thailand, if you serve, they say, well, if you had guard duty or you had perimeter duty in Thailand, then you're exposed.
You're exposed.
This man's climbing out of a plane with all these little jets on that sprayed a few minutes ago in Vietnam, and he gets off, he's exposed to it.
You said something earlier. We discussed most of these folks in these kind of decision-making positions never served a day. Mm-hmm. And you have someone in a room taking a look at a regulation, which is just words on a paper, making the determination about your life, which is your 9 numbers. They don't know you.
Yeah.
You are just a number. You're not even a human being to these individuals that are passing these laws that are affecting lives, families, because of their empathy, a lack of.
That's true. And another thing, we were bearing the guy in my organization today, and he got 100% in October, and he passed this week. Mm. And so it happens quite often. You fight, and you finally get the 100%, and when you do, you don't last too long.
You don't last long.
Herman, would you give that phone number out again, please?
Okay. We are Veterans Today. We're getting ready to take a break, but when we come back, you can call us at 678-619-1402.
Okay.
We just had a good hour. We got one more hour coming up. We're going to cover a lot of deep topics. We're going to cover them in details. And when we come back, we'll be ready to start on that.
Absolutely.